And again, welcome. In your package, you have December 9, 2013 planning board draft minutes. Is there a motion to accept them? Second. Any corrections, deletions, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Abstain.
Any abstention? Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
First on the agenda, special use permit site plan review by Upstate Cellular Network doing business as Verizon Wireless for a proposed telecommunication facility and associated equipment on property at 511 Higby Road in Hartford, owned by Charles T. Citrus Healthcare Incorporated.
Thank you, Dory. Are we going to go about this, sir?
Well, the last time that we were here, we asked the applicants to provide us with some additional site views for towers located on the Citron property, but not the location they had initially proposed. There had been some indication that they had looked at, I believe, 3 sites on the Citron property. However, when we got their visual depictments, they only looked at one of the locations. So we were asking them to give us similar photo simulations for the other locations on the Citron site, or explain to us why those would not be feasible. Further, we had additional discussions as it related to the height of the tower. And as you know, they have given us drawings at 125 feet, 145 feet, and 165 feet. And we had asked for further information relating to the possibility of using the 125 rather than the 145. And I believe Scott Olson is here and is provided or is providing that documentation.
Correct. Good evening. My name is Scott Olson. I represent Verizon Wireless, and that was a great summary. If I could just maybe add a few things. The board did want to look at, we wanted to look at 3 other locations on the Citron property, and we did that, even though Citron will not lease us the property. But still, we understand that this board has to go through that process, and we did that. So we had the RF engineer, Rick Andrus, over there. He had to take a look at those specific locations on the property because they do range in topography. Some of the locations drop down 40 or 50 feet in topography from the location that we're at. One of the locations is only maybe 10 feet lower. Anyway, we looked at those 3 possible locations to figure out what height tower could work technically. And 2 of the locations, we're talking about towers over 200 feet. And once you get into the 200-foot or higher level, we're talking about lighting a tower. It's a pretty big tower. It's pretty massive compared to what we're proposing. So we didn't even photo sim those because they're just, we're talking 225 feet and higher. There was one location on the Citron property that was about 1,000 feet to the north of our existing site. Similar elevation, maybe 10 feet lower or so. When we had Rick looked at it, he plotted everything to give us the actual computer models of what it would look like. And that site is at least doable. But you look at a 195-foot tower compared to the 145 that we're proposing. So we did provide some additional photo sim work, which not in this format, so that the board should have the separate smaller packages before them. But we gave you photo sims showing a 195-foot tower at that, what we call, I think it's location 3, well, I don't think we see it on here. We compare it to the 145-foot tower at our location that we originally proposed. And then we've got the third alternative, and I spoke to Mr. Cully and some of the people at a workshop meeting. Even though 145 is the height that we really truly need, it would be optimal for us. We've heard concerns from the public or from the board, and we're willing to revise the application to come down to 125 feet. So we've given the board some photo simulations at 125 feet is what that would look like for comparison purposes. We've tried to make the photos from take the photos from the exact same locations. Sometimes they're a little off because of the different location of that alternative. But you should have this information that you can look at, compare. We think it's pretty self-explanatory, the 125-foot versus the 195-foot. I think if you look at the photos, you can come to the all conclusion, I guess. But that information is available. Rick is here. If you need to ask him any questions about the RF technology part of it, we can discuss that. So that's where we are, basically, with that. I think the photos, simulations are really the only issues.
And you also looked at a number of other sites that we discussed at a staff meeting, Smithport
We did.
Road, Water Authority tank, the gas company.
Yes.
Is there another one?
Yeah, we've got, you're correct, I have it listed here. I think that I call it Smithport Airfield, about three-quarters of a mile away, a mile away. We looked at that one, the Old Dominion Tower, which is down on Higby Road, 1033 Higby Road. The water tank along Higby Road right next to the site, but that's a 40-foot tank, it's just not gonna work. I think you've covered those all. And we provided that documentation that shows you what the coverage would look like at all those alternatives. Unfortunately, those alternatives don't work for us, they don't even come close. If you look at the mapping, you can see the area that we're trying to cover. These are just unfortunately too far away based on the topography, the trees. It's really got to be the civic property. So we did look at those, Mr. Chairman.
Andrew, you had a conversation with council about...
Yeah, we talked about the town retaining, which we have the right to do under our site plan process, to retain the services of a professional to review the documentation that has been provided to us on our behalf, just to verify the accuracy.
As to the siting, as well as the
Yes.
height of the tower and the coverage?
Yes. Because we've been provided with detailed engineering
Yes.
information. We don't per se have a town engineer who would have the ability to review the data that we've been given.
So this would be an independent review paid for by Verizon.
It's part of
that
our
would
process,
issue
yes.
a report back to us.
Saying that they looked and either confirm or disagree with some of the information.
Any comments or questions from planning board members?
Well, it seems like we're just trying to put off the inevitable, and in the meantime, there's a large area that's not getting adequate cell service. I don't really see a point in continuing the discussions.
Would our independent review include separate RF readings or study the existing information?
I think it would look at the existing information.
They really, unfortunately, they don't have an ability to prepare their own RF analysis because they've got to rely upon our data, which is proprietary. And that's the way the industry works.
They can't physically go out and take individual readings to the separate structures.
Well, they could, you know what, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure they can go out there and if they have the equipment, they can measure signals on certain frequencies to tell you what the existing service is. But they're not going to be able to replicate our model because it's a proprietary model that we've developed over decades. But they could read it and say, okay, yes, at this frequency, here's what the signal level is. And if they are experienced in RF engineering, they'll know what the frequency, what that means, what the dBm means.
Hey, Herb, how quickly can outside counsel get this turned around? Are we talking a month, 3 months, what are we talking?
I would hope we get it done within a month. They've got all the data. We would ask them to provide it to whoever we select and look at.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's a good idea because when we came, I think it was here in January, if not before that, I just don't recollect December. It was mentioned to us that a certain height had been met. And as you've talked to them and you've gone through your due diligence, it appears that now it can be a little lower than what we were originally told. And I think as part of our due diligence, it just makes it makes good sense to have somebody else take a look at it because it affects people's quality of life. I think it's a great idea.
In the time frame that we've been dealing with, and I compliment Verizon because they've worked very closely with us. There's been no resistance in our requests. It's not about putting off the inevitable, it's about making sure this is sensitive, it's always sensitive. This is the third tower I've dealt with, and it's the same for every one of them, that we're covering all the bases on this. And I agree, I just think, you know, an independent review of this, Verizon is not objecting to that review, and then we've done our due diligence. And Brimer, if it comes back and supports everything that they say next month, then we will have a vote on this. There's no question about it. It'll be the final review of a highly technical review. I mean, this is, and I'm not equipped to deal with this. So I just think it's something that we can look at our neighbors and say we did everything possible at looking at this site and the height of this tower and the need of this tower, and then we'll do our jobs.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion that we have outside counsel take a look at this?
Outside consultant.
Outside consultant, excuse me.
I'll second it.
May I just, and I don't know objecting to that, but I just want to clarify something. Our suggestion to lower the height of the tower was really just because we want to address concerns that have been brought to our attention from the board. Quite frankly, we haven't heard any comments from the public. I don't really believe objecting to much. I'm sure it's there. There are people here, so I'm sure that they have comments. But it was really just, we stand by the 145 is the number that we need. But we're just trying to be a good, show some goodwill. And we're willing to compromise because it's important to the community. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Which is all a result of a thorough review process.
I have a question.
Yes, Liz.
There doesn't seem to be any propagation maps for the lower tower heights. The ones in here are at 180 and 195. I mean, how much affected is the coverage at that height? I think
Which one? We have the 145, and that you might be looking at the supplemental material. So the original application would have.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And we show 145.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I think we even then show in some,
Yeah.
maybe the second supplemental submission, we showed 100 feet maybe and
Yes.
125.
Okay, thank you.
And we identified where the holes were.
Is 145 the optimum
Yes.
height that you would like?
Yes, 145 would cover the gaps that we have. I think everybody agrees, there are gaps on Higby Road and the surrounding area. That would cover all the gaps that we have, that would comply with your law, which would require us to build a tower so that there could be co-location. We're not doing it for that purpose, but everything together, that would be the optimal height.
So Herb, would this consultant be looking at that too? Or
Yes.
not just the 125, but be looking at the 145?
Yes.
Can we get it done tomorrow?
Try our best.
Yeah,
I'm guessing there aren't many people around that we can hire that have done this before. So I will definitely search right away to see if we can get somebody on board.
You know, I can probably provide a name or two.
Would you? Sure.
That have represented municipalities that have never represented
That'd be
Verizon
great.
Wireless or other carriers, to my knowledge. They're independent. You know, we've worked with them, and we know what they look for.
That would be
Want,
great if you
so
have
I'll try to-
somebody who's represented the municipality before.
Yeah, I could probably provide a name or two on that regard.
Any other discussion regarding the motion?
I think the bottom line is that we've got to do something because we definitely, before we have some disaster up there, there are spots where you're absolutely dead.
You know,
And I do travel that road.
Anything else, Buddy?
That's it.
Anything else, anybody?
Yeah,
No, so this is not a public hearing, I'm
it's not a
sorry.
public hearing?
No, it is not. There's a motion on the table, is there any more discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Yeah.
One opposed. Liz, I'm sorry, were you?
I'm going to abstain. I didn't attend the meetings. Abstain.
State the voting.
Abstain from voting.
with one opposed. Thank you very much.
Get those to Dory.
We'll get them the next day or so.
Thanks.
Mr. Kevin Copeland and Mr. Richard Tehan, 8246 Seneca Turnpike, New Hartford, New York. Site plan review of proposed tool shed and sales.
Is Kevin, are you coming up here?
Yeah.
with us?
Did you really want any individual property owners or something? Supposed to be over there.
That's why I want to get a second notice. We're with you, Kevin.
Okay, what I'm asking for is, our offices are at 8246, but the property in question is at 8096, which is just up the road. What I'm asking for, I have about, approximately, if you look at the drawings, about 6.2 acres that's been leveled. All the storm has been put in the ground. All the infrastructure's in. We're not going to use it at this time, but it just sat there for so long that I wanted to be able to utilize something to offset the taxes that we paid on it. So along came the Catskill Shed Company that I spoke with, who's a manufacturer of sheds, and they're asking, they're asking that they want to place some sheds on that inner area. It's not going to utilize a fraction of the property. At Route 5 we have power. We have sewer laterals in there, which we're not going to hook to at this stage. But, and storms already built from Route 5 all the way down to the back that runs down to Special Metals, which was a big undertaking. So that's all in the ground. And what we're looking for is just an approval from the planning board so that I can go ahead and put a display area in and sell some, not myself, but sell some sheds out on 5.
So if I remember this, Kevin, on this drawing, the sheds will just be on this property? Are they going to be just on the ground?
Yeah, they're just going to sit on the ground for people who come in on the big horseshoe. There's a big horseshoe driveway,
Yeah, I was up there.
336 or 339 foot frontage. The only time we've ever utilized it was Rick Sherman putting his blacktop plant in there when we were cutting the roads up on Homestead, Concord, and all them. So we're not going to change anything as far as any egress going in or out of the property. And of course, the center area, which has the sign pole, is all mowed grass anyways. So if anything, we're going to improve the looks of that face Route 5.
Are they gonna be up on blocks or raised, or are they?
They'll probably sit on blocks or on some kind of a 4x4, which is probably the flooring that they're sitting on. One of them will be used probably for display materials such as brochures. People come in on a Sunday and they want to pick up something or see somebody regarding them, and it's pretty straightforward.
You're not gonna pave or anything, you're just gonna set them?
The only paving that's there is what's currently there, and that was the millings that were left from the town of New Hartford, and the millings that I had in the blacktop that I had before that. On the structure sits a pole barn now, and a 2-stall that sits in the back. There's a couple concrete pads that are on there near the pole barn, which the pole barn's empty, other than a few things that I have in there. There's nothing really cooking there.
And Herb, when we were at the staff meeting on this, Joe indicated, Joe Booth is ill tonight, that this is a permitted use in the zone?
Yes, he said, that's what he said, yeah.
And he had no objections to what it is they were doing?
No.
Any questions from planning board members?
I have a few questions. Is there going to be an office on site?
It's going to be, let me clarify, it's going to be an office, but it's not going to be set up with bathroom, etc. If it is, we will conform to codes, and we spoke to Joe on that.
So will there be an employee on site?
Probably weekends, if somebody's there, they can't stay there.
Right.
I mean, they're not gonna be sleeping there or anything, but they'll probably come in, you know, holiday weekends or weekends to answer questions from people.
Your application states that you have a locator map showing the site in relationship to the town. Can you show me where that is in the application?
This one here,
Where is that in relationship to the town?
this is Route 5.
Yeah, that's not what a location map, the location should show the town or a greater extent. Also, it says that you said yes to provision for pedestrian access, including public and private sidewalks. I don't see any sidewalks.
No sidewalks.
So
It does have, what was the question?
It says you answered yes
Yes,
to
because-
provision for pedestrian access, including public and private sidewalks.
When they drive in, they're gonna have access to get out of their car quite a ways away from the road to actually roam around between all the units.
No,
Actually,
I
the
understand.
question probably should be included but not limited to, so perhaps in the future they could do something like that, but I understand what you're saying.
No,
People can walk,
I'm
but there'll be
just-
space for them to walk, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, all around the property.
I guess my general comment is, and in going through these applications this week, that some of the check boxes really shouldn't be checked because the application really isn't, there's no drawing that's to scale. It says
Well,
that
if I
there is-
prepared a lot of these from time to time, I'd probably know that, but since this is my first trip around, and when you asked about a map, I was checking with the idea that in reference to Route 5,
Yeah,
this is the mapping of the property. As a matter of fact, it's a landscaping map. As far as a townwide map, I can certainly point it out to you, but no, I do not have one.
no, I know, the map's also not to scale, it's been reduced, so you can't scale off of it, and I don't know if it's different from my previous times on the planning board, but typically we get an example of what the signage would look like also.
So let me just go back to something you just said. You said the map isn't to scale, so you're saying that the applicant took the map and brought it?
No, I'm just saying
I'm
it was
confused by your remark.
photocopied. If I pick up my 100 scale, it says map is 1 to 100 scale.
Right,
She
I
can't scale
cannot
it.
scale off of it because it's not printed at 1 to 100 scale.
right.
And when you apply, you should have a scale map, so.
No problem.
Did Joe Booth have it, he said this was a permitted use, did he set or establish any setbacks with these sections?
No, we just knew that with the county, that we did not want to be in the right of way of the county, which was so many feet from the, I think, the center of their road, and I can't recall what they were, what they had mentioned in the county, but they didn't seem to have an issue with it.
Anybody else?
I just have one quick question. How, it mentions in here you're next to the trailer park. And I travel that way every day to go to work. But how far do you think the closest shed will be to someone's site view from the trailer park? It's kind of a little bit of a ways, isn't it?
Quite a ways.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Where these are, on the far right side, where the trailer park borders the property, there's nothing in that front corner. It doesn't start till it goes down their driveway. Behind the pole barn is where the first few are.
Thank you.
Also on the application form, it said reason for planning board review. Plans, development, zoning is checked. It should be, I believe, site plan review.
No, that's, well,
Because
it's this crazy zone that brings it into us. This zone's gonna change under the new law,
It's planned highway business.
yeah.
Okay,
That's
but-
probably why he
but-
checked.
Okay,
Yeah.
but this is a site plan review.
Absolutely.
It is that
Absolutely.
zone brings it in front of us for.
Okay. Does the town require that the planning board see the proposed signage? Is my question, I don't recall.
Isn't that a permit that Joe approves?
Joe issues a permit
Unless
if it
there's-
applies, otherwise they go to
If it
the ZBA.
exceeds the
The
square
square
footage or
footage,
whatever.
right.
And there's an existing sign of,
No,
Two.
there's existing sign posts. It says existing sign. There's a frame for a sign there.
I took the sign down.
There's an
There's a-
application.
There was a sign that
Yeah,
was
there's a
there that
location.
said,
Yeah.
for lease, for rent, will build, develop, I can't even recall what the verbiage was, but I
Yeah,
took it
yeah,
down.
yeah, I understand.
And these are all temporary structures, not to remain in place?
No. Any other questions or comments? Is someone inclined to make a motion
I'll make a motion.
to,
Accept.
is there a second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Is that it? That's it?
That's it.
No more questions?
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay. SAES Smart Materials, 4355 Middle Settlement Road in Hartford, New York. Amendment to final, it's for preliminary and final site plan review. Addition of a 400 square foot extension onto their existing building.
Thank you, Dory. I'm Jim Shaver from SAES Smart Materials, facilities engineer. We would like to extend our building an additional 20 feet when viewed from the front and 20 feet deep in the southeast corner to accommodate a wastewater storage tank. We currently use individual totes within the facility with a fork truck moving them around. This bulk tank will save us money in having the wastewater hauled away in a bulk tanker instead of the small truck that comes every 3 days. So it's a significant cost savings for our company to have this bulk tank. It needs to be enclosed so that it won't freeze during the winter months. It's currently on impervious ground where we propose to put it. And I think the letter is, basically I just stated what my letter is.
Do you have anything on this, Herb?
No, I didn't.
Neither did Joe. Planning board members, any comments or concerns? Is someone inclined to make a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alan Miller, 83 Clinton Road, New Hartford, New York. Preliminary and final site plan review for a proposed motorcycle repair shop at 83 Clinton Road. Property is owned by Ms. Nancy J. Clinton. I am.
Larry, how are you? Folks, how are you? And not only motorcycle repair, but bicycles as well.
Herb, if I remember our discussion with Joe on this, and I'm starting to miss Joe this evening. And I would just also remind everybody on those applications, the comments on, the check marks, and Herb, correct me if I'm wrong, which is a good possibility, the codes enforcement officer makes a determination that the application is complete.
Yes.
So there's nobody here at this table that makes that determination. I just want to remind everybody.
This is the one that they went to the zoning board of appeals for an interpretation, and they obtained an interpretation that this business was consistent with the RB4 neighborhood business zone. And as I understand it, they're making no exterior changes. However, they are changing the use to this motorcycle repair shop.
Those minutes are in the packet. And that zone from its automotive repair work.
Yes.
So
And they interpreted that motorcycle repair is consistent with automotive.
So with that backdrop, any questions or comments from planning board members? Yes, Liz?
I have a question. When I visited the building, it doesn't seem to reflect the floor plan that was submitted, but this doesn't show the garage door that's on the side. And my question is the garage door staying, and what side of the building will it be occupying?
The garage door will be staying, everything will be staying just as it is today.
Okay, because that's not reflected on the interior plan. And I'm just not sure why it was submitted, that was my question.
Because I think that actual drawings, when originally Nancy was going to move the dog
Right.
thing to one side, and I think they were going to eliminate the
Yeah,
door
there's two
according to that
windows,
plan.
yeah.
And that's why that, the only drawing I could come up with that was.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
Absolutely.
It's on the garage side.
Anything else, Susan? Anybody?
You saw the secret, the comments from DOT?
Well, do you want to advise us about that?
Well, we've received, have you been provided with a Department of Transportation response?
I think their response was that they had no issue. It was up to the township for it.
The highway boundary is 25 feet from the Route 12B center line to the front of the subject property. For safer ingress and egress, the parking area in front of the building should be removed.
We're not going to use that at all.
Okay, so you're acknowledging no one will, you're not going to have any parking in
No,
front?
sir, not at all.
A sidewalk could be added to the front of the building, which would provide easier pedestrian access from the side parking area to the front entrance.
My thought process was to use what they were just considered the no parking zone as any egress for the people, only parking in the parking lots.
And then
So it's already present.
And the last one is no signage, obviously, in the DOT right of way.
And I thought what I would do was actually put lines down there showing you walk right to the front of the building, yellow line.
Percentage again will go to Joe for a permit.
They can't put it in the right of way, that's all you're saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know that.
would go to
But
Joe
again,
for
would
a
go
permit.
for, so if they
Yes.
tried to put it in the right of way, Joe would be objecting along with DOT.
So it's gonna be on the building though, right? The signage is on the building?
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
existing on the building.
So the big thing is no parking in front.
Okay.
Someone inclined to make a motion
I'll make the motion.
with the restriction that there's no parking in the front?
Yes.
We have a discussion on that, we're gonna include no parking in front. That's a DOT recommendation for the specific activity. There's also other facilities there, including Higby and that. Are we holding that restriction for the entire facility or just for this one applicant?
Well, they're talking about the whole front, aren't they?
Yeah, they are talking about the whole front.
That's the way it was, I read it, yes, sir.
That's how I interpret it. I mean, if we're gonna put that in a statement, we're gonna set all.
You own the building?
No, sir.
I thought we were just approving the use.
Well, you're approving the site plan.
The site
The
plan.
DOT,
You're not-
it's merely
it's a permitted
recommendation.
use.
We don't have to go with it
No.
one way or the other. I don't think we can impact the other businesses that aren't in front of us.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about that there would be
Yeah.
other uses.
Well, and they say this recommendation is consistent, so it's their recommendation, it doesn't say shall.
Yes, ma'am.
Not must.
Not must, not shall. It says should, and then it says this recommendation, so.
So are we taking that out of your motion that?
I am taking it out of the motion. I am taking it out of the motion.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? Did that answer your questions, Julius?
You work on go-karts too?
Only if I have to.
Well, you gotta vote no then.
Although I had a phone call today about a
Oh, all right.
go-kart to fix, so.
Anything with wheels.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. But we can fix it.
I'll bring
They'll be
four of
there.
them. Four of them over there tomorrow.
Anything with the price.
Well, that's what, I've been surprised by many things, we still fixed it.
All right.
We'll climb.
Okay, Mr. Frank Cristiano, or Tony Cristiano, 3900 Oneida Street in Hartford, New York. Amendment to final for a proposed physical therapy operation in the newly renovated building at 3900 Oneida Street.
Good evening, everybody. I believe Mr. Cristiano was last before you in August of 2013.
Right, Al, this is the same building.
The same building,
We did
3900.
interior changes. We previously approved a change in use as part of the building.
Yes,
This is a change in use in the remaining portion of the building with no exterior changes.
at our time of our original application, because we had to utilize the entire building, Tony was negotiating with someone about the possibility of putting an office building in there, or some office function. And so, my recollection is when we got it approved with enough parking for both the professional office building and the martial arts building. Now, since that time, he has been unable to rent it as a professional office, and he has now got a tenant that is a physical therapist and future fitness. So it's a fitness center and physical therapy, and he's going to utilize a portion of the building as storage. The only issue we're before you is because of parking requirements. The parking requirements for an office is 1 parking space per 300 square foot. For a fitness center, it's 1 parking space per 200 square feet. Initially, we had it approved with 69 parking spaces, and that included 11,100 square feet of office building, or office portion is an office use, and about 5,600 square foot is a fitness center or a martial arts center, and that was 1 per 200 square foot. So now we are to the point where we're going to have the martial arts 5724, 1 per 200 is 29 spaces. He also has a 2,800 square foot area for storage, for Tony's personal storage. He has a lot of equipment from his restaurants and things that he uses in there. And Joe is aware of that as well. And it's 1 per employee, 2 employees, that's 2 parking spaces. You have physical therapy, which is considered an office use, and there's about 4,200 square foot, 1 per 300 square feet, that's 14 spaces. And future fitness is another 4,600 square foot, and that's going to be 1 per 200 square feet, which is 23 parking spaces. It adds up to 69 parking spaces, the amount of parking we have. And it fully utilizes the entire area.
You know, my recollection, the last time you were here, one of the questions related to whether you were going to pave the parking. Everything's staying the same?
Everything's staying the same.
You're not doing any paving?
No
Was there
paving.
a question about the little stream on the side?
There was, but we're not touching it, we're not going near, nothing.
Nothing's changing out there?
Physically, nothing's changing. The exact same parking layout as we had originally approved.
Okay.
We're not doing anything. And yes, you'd say about puddles, and I remember your comments.
No, you were out bulldozing back there the other day.
Tony,
What about the bulldozer?
well, you were out there bulldozing, what were you bulldozing for?
No, it's on the land where I bought.
That's the new land.
Oh, he bought
Got
a
nothing to
different
do with
property.
Okay, is that where you, or do you intend to extend the parking out there?
No. It's
No,
a separate property.
What are you gonna do with that? 'Cause
That's a different piece of
That's
property.
a different property. I don't have nothing to do with.
that, where does the property end?
It ends right by where the car wash is.
Okay.
At the other side of the car
Okay.
wash.
I was thinking in the back.
He just bought that parcel. He bought a
Okay.
parcel with access off of Chapman Road.
They don't connect. That's, you're talking about the green?
Yes.
Well, he also owns property off of Mallory Road, so I think everything is back there jointly.
Well, of course, it's all been bulldozed, it looks like right to the stream.
But we're not here for.
That's another
This
property.
It's all different property.
Isn't being touched.
This site
This
is
is the
not.
site in front of us.
Right, the
Okay.
site in
If
front of
he's
you.
bulldozing where he shouldn't be, that's Joe's problem, now we'll go
Yes.
figure that out. This site isn't changing from the last time you came in. You're identifying the proper parking number of spaces.
That's
And
correct.
if my memory serves me right, Joe indicated when the zoning changes, this wouldn't even be in front of the
That
court,
is
but in
correct.
any event, it is.
Yes.
And he also indicated that it meets current town law in all respects and had no problems with it.
Right, that's correct.
I have a question, so when you last visited us, you were talking about 69 parking spaces.
Yes.
Was it 69 last time, and now it's increasing because 300 to 200?
No,
What was
no,
it
it's,
previously?
it was 69 last time, it's staying at 69.
Okay,
We're able to do that, because we took the storage area out of it, the 2,800 square
Okay,
foot
yeah.
of storage, so we gained like 10 parking spaces there.
and what kind of And this isn't necessarily relevant to your application, what kind of fitness center? Are we talking about activity coming and going, or?
It's my understanding that it's the same person that operates a fitness center in the Whitestown Shopping Center.
Function better?
Function Fitness. So, but I guess he does physical therapy and
Yeah.
as a side light, he has a therapy. So I would think it's almost like Adirondack Sports.
Oh, so it's not a gym, like
No.
a gym where you can go in and
Not like a
bike
Planet
right
Fitness.
above?
Not like a
Okay.
Planet Fitness. It's
Okay.
more like the Adirondack.
Nothing.
But, yeah, because it seems the egress was, today I went after work, there's a trailer park. Are users going into the site meant to go underneath the carport? Or else is
Yes.
this, they are meant to do that? Okay, because there's a trailer blocking that.
Yeah, but
And there's a log
Cristiano's
jam,
working in
quite
there.
a
and
log jam there.
It's not hindering the operation of the martial arts.
There's a dojo there now that was approved.
It was already approved, 5,700 square foot.
It's a permitted use.
Yes, these are all permitted uses.
Move to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion regarding this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Anybody opposed?
Oh, sorry, guys.
And one abstention.
Do you want to state your
Does
reason?
anyone
on
vote? Does
No,
anyone-
she doesn't have to state a reason.
Did anyone oppose?
No.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Would you like me to leave these two tonight?
Sure she does.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
One is,
I can
was
have it,
a,
I can have it, Al?
yeah, you can have both of these.
That's what I learned when you sent me to New York City.
Oh, that's a problem, you boys always learn stuff.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe I'll see it shows there.
Yes, yes.
Next.
Mr. George Corey, 31
You're all
Clinton
set.
Road, New Hartford, recommendation to town board to rezone his property from medium-density residential to high-density residential. This is on Clinton Road. Proposed uses for 4 apartment complexes, each comprising of 6 units. Mr. Corey is here, he lives on Upstate.
Well, this is for a recommendation to the town board. I think you're looking at a zone map amendment from MDR, medium-density residential, to high-density residential. I don't think the proposed use technically comes within the purview at this point, because then they'd have to come back anyway for site plan.
So we're making a recommendation.
Whether you think it's consistent. And there are those 4 criteria which I didn't bring with me.
They didn't tell you about that in New York City?
No.
Or did you have a recollection of what it is?
I thought Joe was going to be here.
Looking around the room.
Where is he?
I know, I told you I missed
Well,
Joe.
I can pull,
You can really sick
Let me ask
of
you
this.
I have
this.
E-code on my phone.
Yes, that would be good. And under the, and I know we're bound by the current law, but under
We are
the,
bound by the current law.
but under the revised law, this would not be permitted.
No.
Here we go.
Oh, you got it. Faster than I could get my E-code here. Whether all proposed amendments or changes originating by petition or motion of the town board shall be referred to the planning board for a report and recommendation. In undertaking such review, the planning board shall make inquiry and provide recommendation concerning the items specified below. 1, whether such change is consistent with the purposes embodied in this chapter as applied to the particular districts concerned. 2, whether adequate
Well,
public...
can we stop at 1?
Okay.
So, is what you said at the beginning,
Whether the change is consistent with the purposes embodied in this chapter as applied to the particular district concerned.
so he's looking to go from medium density to high density.
High-density residential.
So
I mean, obviously, I
that's
don't...
inconsistent right there, isn't it?
I mean, I don't mean to say too much, because I'm not supposed to be influencing any decisions or whatever, but obviously you would look at the general zoning in the area, you'd look at what's there. You've got a school, elementary school across the street, you've got a residential neighborhood in the vicinity. I mean, those are the things that you are gonna look at, as well as the way our current zoning ordinance is written, and what uses would be permitted.
Well, it would just seem to me there's an inconsistency with the very first item on your list, going from medium density to high density. It's a separate one.
Whether adequate
But it's
public
still
service.
residential. It's, you know,
Well, we
it's
have
still,
various, yeah, we have various degrees of residential, but are you gonna take, put apartments in a R1A? Is that different just because it would be still residential? It's not consistent with the residential that's around it. From my observation anyways, but that's just a point.
2, whether adequate public services and other support facilities exist or can be created to serve the needs of any additional development that may occur as a result of such change. Whether stormwater systems are in place, water, sewer.
Do we know that?
Yes. I
yes,
mean, the
we have
letters.
some- we have some support letters.
So that's a yes.
Rick, are there stormwater issues up there?
Not really, no.
Is there any kind of stormwater system in place?
It's state highway.
Could you read that one again?
Whether adequate public services and other support facilities exist or can be created to serve the needs of any additional development that may occur as a result of such change. Is this a
Mr.
hill?
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I know we
Hill?
talked about this before the meeting, and maybe I can't ask the question about sewer hookups and the ability for the county to manage sewer if excess development were to happen because of the project. I guess, is that a question that can be asked? I mean, Rick, or I can't ask the question.
You can ask any question you like.
That's one of the criteria.
Yeah,
Is it gonna
I mean,
pose-
do you know that?
Right, there's credits available.
There is credits available, but that's not my question. I
Okay.
guess my question is, because we don't see anything, and this isn't your area, we don't see anything in here from the county as it relates to sewer, if,
Well, it's not, the interceptor's not there, it's our sewers.
okay,
And in that area, I do not have problems. I have problems further up by the town Kirkland line, is where my problems exist. As far
okay.
as I know, I have no issues down there on Clinton Road by Miles School across.
But I guess the question isn't about what you have today, it's you now, if you have 24 units going in and any additional development that happens because of that, if your interceptor can withstand additional crap. I mean, I don't know, I mean, sewage.
Sarah, did you get that?
Thank
Sewage. No. Clinton Road.
Effluent. I don't know.
They say
Human.
sewerage.
Sewerage.
Maybe residential, I guess, GDIS.
So, yeah.
It still isn't it?
But you don't know, I guess. Or you think it's,
I have no issues there.
okay, all right.
As of today,
Is the slope of the land a hill?
in the back part of it, it is.
No, the whole,
Because Merritt's higher than Clinton Road, it is between the two roads.
there's an 85-foot difference between,
Yeah.
that's,
So if-
I have some issues.
Yeah, if that were cleared out and roads and whatever, would that create additional stormwater flow toward 12B?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Anything else, Heather? Liz?
No, I mean, just as to the slope question, but I was waiting for the other ones because I have some
Okay.
other site concerns.
3, the indirect implications of such change in its effect on other regulations.
Can you say it again?
The indirect implications of such change in its effect on other regulations.
What regulations are there?
No idea. I didn't write that.
Proposed or current?
Current.
Because we know it's
You
inconsistent
can't
with
look at,
proposed.
you can't look at proposed.
Okay, well, nobody knows what that means, but we'll struggle with it. Number
4, whether such proposed amendment is consistent with the underlying objectives of the town comp plan, which is being revised.
Does that give us an opportunity to consider what the future zoning will be?
No,
At the end of the current.
current, right.
But under the comprehensive plan is being, but the comprehensive plan is being revised.
But isn't the current zoning a reflection of the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Which would mean that the medium density residential is part of the current comprehensive
Okay,
plan.
so then that's.
Zoning
not-
reflected by the comprehensive plan.
And if this change was allowed, then it would allow us to change any residential zone to any zone we felt appropriate to meet the needs of the developers.
And then a question from me on this also is, if it's inconsistent with the zoning around you, is it spot zoning?
Yeah.
It is.
Sure it is.
Usually it would have bought with a similar zone.
But it
In this
does
case, it
not.
doesn't, so it would be spot zoning.
Well, see, the matter of pet cemetery.
And then the big one, whether such proposed amendment is consistent with the character of the community, which also would take into consideration the character of that neighborhood.
The entire neighborhood on the back side and across the street, it's all typical medium density, single-family homes. I mean, yeah, we've got all that.
It reflects the zone, the current zoning that it was built under.
Right.
It's actually low density.
Is it all that, okay.
It's actually LDR, I think.
Is that LDR? I thought it was medium.
Might be medium. Are you talking about the
Yeah, I
manners?
think it's, yeah, medium density.
Is it all
I
medium?
wouldn't call that low density.
That's a, well, the three space would be one.
Do you have any comments on those lists?
No, I just say kind of the seeker and the slope and everything else on the site, but. And stormwater, I mean, obviously.
Well, let
Thank you.
her make them because we need them.
She's free to do whatever she'd like.
Well, in reviewing the seeker documents, the application, there were a number of things that were incorrect in that. For instance, on number 5, it says the approximate percentage of proposed project with slopes is at 100% or 0 to 10%. There's only about a third of the site that falls into this. I looked at the site, I looked at the 5-foot contours for the site. The site from end to end is, if you made a road straight down the site and were able to equally space, it would be about 7.8%. But some of the areas on the sites are well over 20%. So the categories are 0 to 10%, 10 to 15, and 15% or greater. And there's approximately a third of the site that's greater than 15% slope. The other inconsistency I found in the application, I looked at the soils. It says that 100% is well drained. It, in fact, is 35% of the site approximately, and the moderately well drained about 65%.
Can you say it, because for my own education, how do you know that? Is it-
I looked at the mapping, I looked at the parcel map, I looked at the topography, the soils map.
Okay, that
The state soil.
they gave us, you were able to do?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm just trying, no, this isn't a dig, I'm just for my
No, it's
personal
on, the
education.
soil maps are on file with New York State Soil and Water.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
also, they're also
Public.
Okay,
on,
because I just don't have that
And
background.
it lists the types of soil and types of subsoil.
Mhm.
The whole state's been plotted, the whole country.
And so he would be,
Service.
whoever filled this out, that would have been readily available for him to.
It's available, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The other thing, it says that they plan to develop 3 acres out of the 6, and then it says that they plan to remove 1.2 acres of vegetation. Approximately, I'd say 90% of the site is vegetated right now with mature trees and scrub. The only part that's not is the part off of Merritt Place, the little, between the 2 lots. So pretty much it's all wooded, and there's no way that they're only clearing 1.2 acres. It also says in the documents that currently existing are 56 parking spaces, and they're proposing 56. that's not the case. So I just had many issues, and it also, the soils are erosive in the range that's in the center for the 15 to 20% slope range. And the buildings that they're proposing, and just the size of the buildings, I mean, it's just, this site's equivalent to, and I looked at it, so it's about 1,100 feet from street to street. And if you go up Jordan Road from Genesee to Paris, that's about the slope that you're looking at and about the length you're looking at. So just to get a sense of that. That's all. But like I said, it's just, stormwater-wise, very, very difficult to put enough parking and the building footprints on that site and to manage the stormwater. They would need quite some kind of stormwater management on site at the bottom of that site. So.
Dory, did you get all,
Yeah.
did you get those, all of those comments?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to make sure that the town board has them.
It's good having you back, Liz.
I'll have to talk to Liz.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Do we want to take it one by one, or do we want to do it as a group? Each of the 4 categories? What for?
For myself, I count at least 3 out of 5 where I'm a no. But we can do it individually, or we can just, whoever cares to make a motion, I'll entertain the motion. One way or the other, or anyway.
Well, let's see, I'll make a motion, we do not accept this at the present time.
So our recommendation of the town board would be not to,
To disapprove of the zone change.
the proposed
Or
zone
not to
change.
approve
Right.
zone change,
Right.
yes. Needs more work.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any further discussion on this?
Are we going to add our reasons to that?
I think that'd be a good idea.
I mean,
Let each
it seems
person
like we ought
individually
to
vote
state that based on these 5.
based on Liz's comments or whatever.
Well, especially
based on-
what she brought up about the drainage issue and slopes, I mean, that's just huge for it to be inaccurate in this application.
Right.
It's just huge.
Yeah. But I mean, one of the questions was, are there adequate public services? So I don't know where this concern, I mean, obviously, I find problems with the application. And this-
Well, the other thing, but with that public service in it, or can be created, and you can create anything. So
That is
that
true.
reasoning
That is true.
is
Well, I like the
basically.
definition of public services. I think that's what we need to know.
Because theoretically, if they
more the
develop
other.
the site correctly, they can put the stormwater facilities in that
Yeah,
they're not
Yeah.
generating, you know, the rate, et cetera, but,
But we-
And, you know, and personally, I'm not against the density of having condominiums as such, if you have enough green space to offset this, but the present, this is inadequate.
Well, I think the crux of the whole situation is, this is a medium density neighborhood. It's,
Inconsistent with
the applicant is seeking to make it a high density development that does not fit within, for me, number 1, number 4, and number 5 of first list of the law fails. And it's spot zoning, which is a whole nother part of the law that fails. It's illegal for the town to create spot zoning. So there's a bunch of things that the town board's gonna have to worry about on this one.
Plus the discrepancies in the application.
but I think that's the way it should be. There's discrepancies in the application and the, doesn't meet the criteria for a zoning change. And list the 3 that specifically, I guess. I think that should be in our recommendation, stating why. I think we've got to say why we make the
Yeah, that's good.
recommendation.
Well, we've said it, haven't we, Terry?
Based on,
You want us-
Quickly, ma'am?
Well, Counselor?
I think
like I said, based on the discrepancies in the application and three categories that have been discussed in detail.
And the spot zoning.
Yep.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
spot zoning, which is something separate altogether.
Yeah. Well, that would fit under the one we didn't understand, or any.
Oh, we could. All right, we're putting that at number 3.
Right, is that any other?
Catch-all.
Catch-all.
All right, Brammer, did we cover it?
I think so.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Thank you, we're adjourned.